So Titanfall 2, all right. This is one that I think that a lot of us are curious about because the original Titanfall came out and it was interesting. It was a game that was very much fun to play initially, and I think for a lot of people the repetition, the lack of content really is what killed the game almost instantly when it came out. It was really, the game came out and it had like a solid month of foundation where players would sit there and play and really, embrace the new game modes and really just pack the lobbies completely full. And then people just got bored of it, all right? Now, I had the opportunity to play the sequel at E3 2016, and I actually got to play it on the PlayStation 4. I was actually pretty surprised they had the PlayStation 4 version up. And to be honest with you, I walked away feeling very disappointed, and I wasn't really super excited or looking forward to a sequel for Titanfall because I wasn't really so in love with the first one. But I played Titanfall 2 and I said to myself, this feels like an expansion. It doesn't feel like a full-fledged game. The gameplay is almost identical. Like, they didn't change it. The way it feels is the same. It doesn't feel a little bit more refined, doesn't feel a little bit more easier to control, there's nothing really new in terms of the game's feel, right? But the game really prides itself on delivering that fast-paced action gameplay. And from what I've played, I can honestly say that it's still that same super fast gameplay, that very Twitch kind of shooter that it takes from Call of Duty, and then it really implements it into this whole parkour move where you're able to like really fly around the map at these incredibly fast speeds. Now, the AI are still present on the map, and I have to say that they pretty much reduced the amount of AI this time. There is it's not to say that there's not a lot, but there is a significant reduction in the amount of AI players that are on the battlefield. And so I think a lot of people are actually going to be happy to see this because a ton of times you would actually get into in the original Titanfall, you get into a match and you just end up killing like a bunch of AI soldiers, and you would rarely see a person, or you'd run into a person really guaranteed with a Titan. With this game, the maps, from what I gathered, are a little bit more compact. They're slightly smaller, but they pretty much took the AI and reduced the amount of AI-controlled enemies that were in there. So it's much easier to find people. They're much easier to see. And I actually got into the demo late, so I only had like about 10 minutes with the game, and most people had 20, and I wasn't even that compelled when I left to go back in line and to play it again, because I could have actually got back into another PlayStation, and there was no line whatsoever. I just walked right up, just got a console, got the game, and started playing. And so I understood why there wasn't that much people there. And speaking with some other people and just kind of overhearing what other people were saying, some people were actually not that impressed as well. So it's like I wasn't like the only person who honestly felt this way. It really does feel like an expansion. Titanfall 2 feels like they took Titanfall. They said, we're going to make this huge single-player portion to the game. We're going to add more maps. We're going to add more Titans. We're going to take out some more AI. And it just feels like you're playing the original game with, slightly, and I'd be very slightly better visuals. In fact, the game looked downright ugly at times, just like the first one, like really muddy textures and not that great lighting, to be honest with you. And it baffles me. It's like, this is an EA game, and they're still using the Source engine, the guys over at Respawn. Why don't they just, why doesn't EA just put them on the Frostbite engine? I just don't understand, because almost every single EA game is moving to Frostbite. I mean, Need for Speed moved to Frostbite. The sports games are actually moving to Frostbite. In fact, BioWare's upcoming Mass Effect game was just announced to be moving to Frostbite. So why is Respawn still making the Titanfall series, still running on the Source engine, which has terrible pop-in? I'm playing this on the PlayStation 4, so I can't speak for the other versions, but terrible pop-in, downright ugly textures at times like that. And I understand the game's pre-release, right? Yes, the game is pre-release, but I played tons of other pre-release games that were way farther out than Titanfall 2 that managed to look better and held up much better in the graphical department and everything like that. It's just I was playing this game and I'm just thinking to myself, why don't they just move the frostbite? This would take care of the whole graphics issue. They'd be able to optimize the game. It would look pretty, and it would be fine. But for whatever reason, they're still using that modified source engine, and it just makes the game look ugly at times. The game just it does not look that good. But graphics aren't everything, and the game is actually still fun to play if you like the original Titanfall. And I think that's what it really comes down to with this game. This game is so similar to the original Titanfall that if you didn't like the original Titanfall, there is nothing here, and I mean nothing. Nothing with a capital N. There is nothing here that will make you enjoy this game any more or less than you did with the original Titanfall. And so I walked away really feeling to myself like they could have sold this as a $30 expansion to the original Titanfall, and it probably, to be honest, that we wouldn't have missed a damn thing. It just feels like they said, all right, we'll throw in some, campaign right here because people want a story, so we'll throw in a story, and we'll throw in some more mechs, and we'll throw in some cool maps, and then that's it. Some of the weapons, there are different weapons. Again, it still feels the same. So some of the weapons actually are pretty interesting and cool to use, and they do have different dynamics where, okay, some have a burn reduction rate, so you have to you have limited ammo, but you have to fire them and make sure that you don't hold down the trigger long enough because then they'll overheat. Then there are others like your standard assault rifle from the first game that they kind of enhanced and made it a little bit better. In fact, I think the shooting overall, they not that it's any less responsive, but I felt that the game played slightly slower than the original game. Slightly slower. You can still do those crazy jumps, you can still go around the map and do all this cool stuff, but I still feel the game played slightly slower than it did in the original game. I think only because I had 10 minutes of the game, I didn't really get enough of a grasp, but like I said to you guys, I wasn't even that compelled to go back in line. Like, I played the game, I'm like, wow, that was a waste. Really, like that's honestly how I felt. So overall, I don't have much to say on Titanfall 2 because there isn't much to say about the game. It's Titanfall 1.5. It pretty much feels like an expansion. And if you did not like the original Titanfall, if you were not interested in the original Titanfall, then there is nothing for you here. Yes, there is a campaign, but if we all pay attention to the story trailer they released, it looks very cheesy. It looks very budget and very kind of blast-minded. Like, it's not going to be, you're not going to sit here and have this interesting relationship between your main character and your Titan, and this is going to become, sort of a cool combat duo that you actually end up caring for, the AI that's within your Titan, which is something that they could actually expand upon, and it could be really interesting. But I just feel like they're just throwing it in there just because people screamed that they wanted it, and it's going to end up being probably around 4 to 5 hours anyway. And so, really, if they can impress in the campaign department, then I might retract some of my negativity here that I expressed in the video, but I really just feel like Respawn isn't going to focus on it. Respawn is focused on creating longevity for their franchise, and you do that in the multiplayer department. They do have an interesting foundation that they can build for themselves with a campaign. And I think an interesting dynamic between a relationship between your character and the Titan, who is really sort of your only companion in this journey. So it's interesting. I think the Titanfall world, to be honest with you, is an interesting one, and I was compelled to see more of this world when I was playing the story in the first one, if you can even call it that. And I hope that, to be honest, in Titanfall 2, while I'm not that pumped for the multiplayer, I hope that the story at least takes us to these drastic locations and creates enough of a lore, enough of an interest to warrant having sort of a cool story to expand on in the upcoming sequels. I just don't think that they're going to do this, but honestly, they do have an interesting world and an interesting concept and plenty of interesting opportunities to make this a story that is worth experiencing rather than having it just be an afterthought. But we don't know how it's going to be. I'm hoping for the latter, but we'll end up I guess we'll end up finding out whenever the game releases. The game got delayed, I believe, and I'm not surprised. I mean, EA was pretty much sending it to its death. If it was gonna release in November, I believe. I believe Titanfall 2 was releasing in like late November or October or something like that. I'm like, EA is pretty much sending the game to its grave with having it released so close to Battlefield 1. So having it delayed until the early quarter of 2017, I believe, I think that's a perfect date, and I think the game's going to do fine. Just keep in mind, there's nothing really new here. It's still the same core game, just expanded upon. So really, Titanfall 2 is Titanfall 1.5. Maybe 1.75, but we'll see. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions regarding the game, or anything regarding E3 and stuff like that, just leave them in the comments, and I will be sure to answer them when and if I can. Alright? Have a good one, and thank you.